I knew something was wrong the second I stepped into the break room and saw our new VP standing on the countertop like he was auditioning for a TED Talk no one asked for. "We don't need paper pushers anchoring this rocket ship," he declared, loud enough for the clients in Conference B to hear. He winked at an intern, high-fived someone from marketing, then, God help us, shouldered past a woman quietly reviewing documents near the coffee machine. That woman was our notary, the one I'd spent 3 weeks coordinating with, the one holding the only legally binding copy of Exhibit C for the $180 million escrow release. She didn't say a word, just packed her seal, shut her folder, and walked straight out the front door like a ghost who'd seen enough of the living. And there I stood, clutching a mug of stale coffee, watching the paperwork equivalent of a lit fuse vanish into the parking lot. I didn't chase her. I didn't even breathe hard. I opened my laptop, typed one calm line into my compliance log. Notary departed 9:43 a.m. after direct physical interference by VP Connor Blake. Timestamp, encrypt, backup. Sip. Coffee tasted even worse. My name's Rachel Mendoza, Contracts and Compliance Lead at Halberd Systems, San Diego-based Series C startup in fintech automation. My job is the firewall between what our founders promise on glossy pitch decks and what state and federal law actually allow you to do with other people's money. I don't make the rules. I just know exactly how to turn them into a noose when someone decides they're optional. At that point in the quarter, we were days away from finalizing our $180 million funding round led by Renwick Capital, half of which depended on clean escrow compliance. Everything, bylaws, exhibits, signatory authorities, had to be airtight, especially Exhibit C, a notarized statement of indemnity certifying that Halberd hadn't mishandled escrow funds. Boring, sacred, and absolutely non-negotiable. It required wet ink signatures, in person, before a state-licensed notary. No DocuSign. No we'll scan it later. Without that physical notarization, Clause 11(4)(b) of the escrow agreement voided our eligibility. No exceptions. I'd secured Barbara L. Renner, notary ID number 4423, weeks in advance, confirmed dates twice, sent her the compliance draft, the legal checklist, everything. She was old-school thorough, which is probably why, when Connor Blake body-checked her like a linebacker on caffeine, she closed her folder and ghosted the building. What made it worse? No one noticed she was gone. Everyone was too busy soaking in his energy. Connor strutted through the office like a motivational poster with teeth, shouting phrases he'd probably stolen from a podcast. Velocity over bureaucracy. Fail fast. Fix later. Compliance kills creativity. My personal favorite. The only thing he was killing was protocol, and possibly our reputation. Still, I kept quiet. I had the blank Exhibit C locked in my drawer. I didn't wave it around, didn't remind anyone. I'd already learned what happened the first time I tried to warn him. He'd smirked and said, "We're not running a legal museum, Rachel." Fine, let him build a bonfire. I spent the rest of the week preparing for the explosion. Double-checked Clause 11(4)(b). Failure to provide an original notarized Exhibit C prior to pitch submission voids escrow eligibility. The word voids wasn't open to interpretation, so I waited, I logged, I watched. Connor Blake showed up that Monday morning looking like he'd been rejected from a reality show for being too smug. Suntanned in February, hair so shellacked it might have come with its own NDA, and a handshake like he was trying to win an arm wrestling contest. "I'm here to scale velocity and kill inertia," he said, like he'd just cured taxes. Then he tossed a 3-ring binder of investor compliance terms onto reception's desk. "Digitize this dinosaur crap." By noon, he'd already canceled my compliance prep meetings and emailed a new workflow typed entirely in Comic Sans. Comic Sans? I didn't argue. I'd seen this archetype before. Silicon Valley's glitter-coated ignorance. They burn bright, burn fast, and implode on their own. My job wasn't to stop him. My job was to survive him. But it got worse. By Wednesday, We had a pre-pitch walkthrough with minor clients, people who'd whisper to the ones funding the $180 million. I'd scheduled Barbara to finalize Exhibit C right after. She arrived early, stamp ready, quiet, professional. Everything was fine, until Connor made his grand entrance. He didn't just open the conference room door. He slammed it open like he was serving a subpoena. "Let's get this train moving," he barked, elbowing between two investors to reach the whiteboard. In the process, he knocked Barbara's purse clean off the chair beside her. No apology, not even eye contact. He just grabbed a marker and started sketching a funnel that looked disturbingly like a body part you wouldn't put in a pitch deck. I glanced at Barbara. She didn't sigh or speak. She just closed her folder, collected her seal, and walked out the door without a single word. A ghost. A professional one. "Who was that?" Connor asked, still doodling. "State-licensed notary," I said, voice flat. "She was here to finalize Exhibit C." He grinned. "Rachel, come on. It's 2025. We're not notarizing mortgages. Nobody cares about fountain pens under a blood moon anymore. We'll just scan it. PDFs are the new ink." I didn't argue. "Understood." He smiled like he'd tamed another bureaucrat. I opened my laptop under the table and typed 10:14 a.m. Notary. Barbara Renner exited meeting. Exhibit C unsigned. VP Blake present. Timestamp. Encrypt. Backup. Later that afternoon, he summoned me to his new workspace, which looked like a yoga studio that had lost funding. Beanbags, neon lighting, a mini espresso bar, and a whiteboard that read, "Move fast. Bill hard." He lounged barefoot, sipping cold brew. "Rachel," he said, "you've got to chill with the paperwork obsession. Investors invest in people, not paper." I nodded once. "Understood." "Good," he said. "I knew you were reasonable." He had no idea. I walked out thinking, you just gave me permission to document your downfall. Thursday morning, I made one final attempt to save him from himself. I knocked on his glass door. He waved me in mid-Bluetooth call. "Quick question," I said when he finally muted the headset. "Exhibit C. The notarized indemnity statement still needs a wet signature. Barbara was scheduled to handle it, but after..." He rolled his eyes. "We've got scans. That stamp isn't the hill we're dying on." "It's not a hill," I said evenly. "It's clause 11(4)(b). Escrow won't release without the original notarized document. Scans are invalid." He laughed, leaning back. "Rachel, this is Series C money. You think they'll walk over a stamp? We'll get a DocuSign. You're over-engineering." I met his eyes. "It's not me. It's the contract." He blinked, half confused, then waved a hand. "Okay, noted. Don't spook people with legalese. Optics matter." That was the moment I stopped trying. I went straight to HR because habits die hard. Connor dismissed compliance on the escrow clause. I told Melissa, our HR director/wellness coach. "He's assuming scanned versions count." She sipped from a mug that said, "Teamwork makes the dream work," inside. "Rachel, I get it, but he's driving momentum. The board likes his energy." "Energy doesn't override contracts," I said. "Pick your battles," she replied. "Trust the process." I smiled thinly. The process has teeth. Then I left. Back at my desk, I opened the master escrow agreement. Clause 11(4)(b). Again, every word crisp as gospel. Escrow disbursement contingent upon receipt of Exhibit C, duly notarized by certified officer prior to investment pitch. Digital copies not sufficient for compliance. I pasted it into my log and wrote, "Reminder issued 3/14. VP response. We'll get a DocuSign. No escalation, no warning shots. Silence can be sharper than any memo." Friday came. The interns were drowning in color-coded chaos. Printing binders like salvation depended on staples. I asked Maria, one of them, "Do we have the original Exhibit C?" She frowned. I think it's scanned somewhere. Connor said he'll add it later. Thanks, I said, and walked away. The real Exhibit C, the only one that mattered, sat untouched in my locked drawer, blank, unsigned, and very patiently waiting. I backed up the entire log to my encrypted off-site folder labeled Halberd Vault. Then I went home, baked bread, and let the world spin. Because when leaders ignore procedure, the procedure waits quietly until it bites back. By Monday, Halberd looked like a supply closet had exploded. Draft decks, half-signed sheets, investor bios printed in Comic Sans, even trail mix bowls labeled Fuel. Connor had scrawled a new motto across the whiteboard. Monday thrive, Tuesday dominate, Wednesday close, complete with rocket ship doodles. Meanwhile, real compliance steps had vanished. He told me, "Stay heads down, legal girl. Let the interns handle assembly." Assembly. Like $180 million in contracts were IKEA furniture. I kept my distance, taking quiet notes as interns stapled unsigned exhibits backward and updated clauses with whiteout. At one point, Connor dictated a legal disclaimer to a marketing rep eating Cheetos. I didn't correct a word. I just logged everything. 3:17. Legal Exhibit B printed from outdated draft. 3:18. Final pitch deck compiled by interns. No formal compliance review. 3:19. Escrow notary not rescheduled. Each entry, factual, time-stamped, and waiting. Barbara never answered another email. Exhibit C never moved, and I never raised my voice. Barbara's silence became its own kind of presence. Every morning, when I unlocked my drawer, the unsigned Exhibit C stared up at me like a secret that could detonate a balance sheet. The interns didn't even realize it existed. Connor sure didn't. He'd convinced himself the world ran on charisma and coffee foam, not signatures and statutes. I'd seen it before. Guys who treated compliance like confetti until gravity reminded them it was paperwork, not glitter. So, I waited. The office buzzed with false confidence that week. Connor strutted between desks with his Bluetooth in, tossing out synergy and momentum like birdseed. I stopped reacting altogether. Detachment became armor. I logged what mattered. 3:19, CEO absent, VP. Blake assumes full pitch authority. No notarization scheduled. I time-stamped it, encrypted, saved, and closed the file. By Thursday, the interns were finalizing pitch binders for Monday's big presentation. They believed they were crafting history. I knew they were stapling together a time bomb. Pages out of order, mismatched letterheads, unsigned indemnities. At one point, I saw someone use whiteout on a legal clause, then scribble looks fine in the margin. I typed another calm entry. No emotion, just facts. Friday, 7:03 a.m. The fuse finally sparked. An email slid into my inbox. Subject: Exhibit C confirmation request. From Carla Ye, lead counsel at Renwick Capital, the anchor investor holding half-hour $180 million. She was famous for her precision, never wasted a syllable. Her message read, "Rachel, please confirm receipt of the original notarized Exhibit C per clause 11.4. Records indicate it should be on file by close of business today. Regards, Carla Ye, Legal Division." No fluff, no greeting, just the digital equivalent of a sniper laser. I stared for 3 seconds, then replied, "All facts, zero fear. Per internal policy and escrow clause 11.4, notarization of Exhibit C is pending in-person authorization. Original not yet received. Best, Rachel Mendoza, Contracts and Compliance." Then, for good measure, I CC'd Connor. 10 minutes passed. Nothing. 20. Still nothing. By lunch, his Slack dot was green, but I knew better. He wasn't reading. He was probably somewhere rearranging slide order to match his energy flow. At 1:06 p.m., a calendar invite appeared. Pitch final. Monday 5 p.m. mandatory. Executive, legal, finance. I leaned back, breathed once. So that was it. They were barreling forward without Exhibit C, without a notary, without a legal leg to stand on. I opened my log. 3:22, 1 o'clock p.m. Investor Legal requested Exhibit C confirmation. Notarized version unavailable. VP notified via CC. No response. Clause 11.4 at risk. Backup. Encrypt. Mirror to offsite. Connor believed the law could be persuaded. He thought policies were flexible if you smiled hard enough. But contracts don't blink. And silence, handled correctly, becomes gravity. That evening, I reviewed the deal binder. On the surface, it gleamed, tabbed, color-coded, thick with paperweight that screamed professional. Beneath, it was a corpse in a tuxedo. Incomplete references, duplicated pages, missing signatures. I almost felt bad for the interns who'd tried to mask incompetence with pastel tabs. But pity doesn't void clauses. The notary hadn't returned calls, and I didn't expect her to. After the way Connor had treated her, I'd have ghosted the county too. Exhibit C still sat in my drawer, blank and patient. That weekend, I didn't log in, didn't hover. I cooked, read, and let the storm gather. Because sometimes the smartest thing you can do in compliance is nothing. Just let the paperwork speak when the time comes. Monday arrived with the kind of artificial excitement only free bagels and blind optimism can buy. Connor showed up in a blazer that looked 2 sizes too small and a grin that could power a TED Talk. He called the finance lead moneybags and winked at a junior analyst. "Big day, team. Let's get rich." His coffee mug said, "I eat compliance for breakfast." I wore navy, hair tied back, expression neutral. The boardroom started filling around 4:30 p.m. Sharp suits, nervous smiles, the air thick with aftershave and desperation. The CEO sat at the head, flanked by finance and legal. Then Renwick's team arrived, 4 people in black, silent as a verdict. Carla took her seat nearest the end, laptop open, eyes unreadable. No pleasantries, just the crisp shuffle of documents as she flipped through the binder. Connor launched into his opener like a televangelist on espresso. "We're not just growing, we're accelerating. We've left red tape in the dust. We're velocity embodied." He paced, gestured, radiated arrogance. I sat 1 seat from the end, pretending to take notes while actually watching the clock. 4:47 p.m. Carla began turning pages. Exhibit A, Exhibit B, operating agreement, partner term sheet. Then, Exhibit C. She paused. Her fingers rested on the paper. She studied it for a long, quiet beat, then looked up. "This needs notarization," she said softly. "Where's the signed original?" The oxygen left the room. Connor froze mid-gesture, hand in the air. "Oh, yeah, that's in transit," he said, forcing a laugh. "In transit?" Carla repeated, voice flat. "Minor scheduling hiccup," he said. "We've got a scanned version for now." "No scanned version is valid," she replied. Clause 11.4. You were notified Friday. Connor's grin twitched. His eyes darted across the room, searching for backup that wasn't coming. "Rachel?" he said, too loud, voice cracking just enough to sound human. "You've got the binder version, right? Didn't we already sort this?" Every head turned toward me. I didn't even look up from my notepad. My voice was even, clinical. "No notarized Exhibit C has been received or executed." For a moment, no one moved. Then Connor laughed again, brittle and empty. "Okay, but it's coming. She's on her way. Traffic or something." Carla checked her watch. "It's 4:58 p.m., she said. "Without the notarized Exhibit C, escrow release is void." The CEO's pen froze midair. His face drained of color. Connor swallowed. We can reschedule, right? Tomorrow, maybe? Just a small delay. Carla closed the binder with a soft, surgical snap. You had 6 weeks. She stood, slid her laptop into her briefcase, and nodded once to her team. The 4 of them rose together and walked out without a single extra word. The click of their shoes on the tile echoed like a metronome for disaster. The door shut at exactly 4:59 p.m. The silence that followed was thick enough to touch. Finance stared at their papers like they might rearrange themselves into salvation. Legal kept flipping pages, as if notarization might materialize through sheer will. The CEO's jaw worked, but produced nothing. Connor finally broke. Okay, let's not panic, he stammered, voice high. He turned toward me. Rachel, you can fix this, right? Not angry now, pleading. I met his eyes, calm as marble. The notary walked out last Monday, I said. I logged it. The words landed like a dropped gavel. Nobody interrupted. The CEO leaned back in his chair, as if trying to create distance between himself and the crater that had just opened under the company. Carla, halfway through the door, paused long enough to say, We're done for today. No cruelty, just finality. Then she was gone. Connor sank into a chair, deflating. This is a misunderstanding, he muttered. No, the CEO said. Just that one word, sharp as glass. I gathered my notes, slid them into my folder. Connor straightened, desperate. We can get another notary, right? I mean, the documents are here. We just need the signature. I turned at the doorway. She won't come back. How do you know? He snapped. Because I didn't chase her. His mouth opened, then shut again. I walked out. The hallway outside the boardroom was all shadows and silence. The glass walls reflected the last smear of sunset, gold fading into gray. I passed the war room where interns still hovered over their laptops, pretending not to refresh their inboxes every 5 seconds. Past the break room, where the same pot of stale coffee sat untouched. Past the laminated posters about core values no one had believed in for months. At my desk, I opened my log one last time. 3:25, 5:04 p.m. Clause 11.4 triggered. Escrow release void due to missing notarized Exhibit C. VP notified. CEO present. Counsel confirmed termination of meeting. Outcome? Deal frozen. Save. Encrypt. Backup. And then I just sat there. No yelling in the hallway. No phones slamming. Just the quiet digital drip of emails piling up as reality sank in. The sound of a multi-million-dollar deal dying politely. I'd spent my career being invisible, the compliant shadow people mocked until they needed rescue. But that night, silence was louder than any victory speech. Silence said, Rachel logged everything. The next morning's calendar invite avoided the word emergency, but it didn't have to. Board debrief. Escrow situation. 8:00 a.m. Mandatory. The panic showed in attendance. Every senior exec was early, even the ones who treated punctuality as optional. Connor wasn't there. I walked in to find the CEO already seated, sleeves rolled up like a surgeon about to cut. Legal, finance, HR, all waiting. Even 2 board members who never left their coastal offices had flown in overnight. Let's begin, the CEO said. His tone was scalpel steady. Melissa from HR stood, laptop in hand. I've been asked to review the compliance documentation regarding Exhibit C and events leading to yesterday's pitch. She connected to the projector. My log filled the screen. Not a summary, a full readout. Every line, every date, every timestamp. Barbara's departure, Connor's dismissal of protocol, Carla's Friday warning, the pitch schedule override, the absence of a notarized document. She read it all, word for word. Nobody spoke. The CEO watched the screen like it was a confession carved in stone. When the final line appeared, outcome, deal frozen, the silence that followed felt heavier than the one the night before. Finally, the CEO turned toward me. You had this the whole time? Yes. And you didn't escalate to legal? I did once, I said evenly. Then I watched. He exhaled through his nose, the sound of resignation. Is this enough? He asked legal, to absolve the company of liability. Yes, counsel said immediately. The documentation proves Rachel followed protocol. There was no concealment. She acted within her role. Good, the CEO said. Then, colder. We're not taking the fall for someone else's ego. HR cleared her throat. Blake's contract has been reviewed. He exceeded his authority without verification. We'll initiate formal separation. That was it. No outrage, no debate, just procedure. The room stayed still after Melissa finished reading. No one clapped. No one looked up. Just the quiet hum of the air conditioner and the weight of truth pressing down on every chair. The CEO sat forward slowly, elbows on the table, fingers tented under his chin. For a moment, he didn't even speak. Then he said, voice level and surgical, "We almost lost $180 million because someone thought compliance was optional." He turned his gaze toward me again, not angry, just exhausted. You could have gone louder. I could have, I said, but you weren't listening. He blinked, then nodded once. Fair. The HR manager looked down at her notes. Termination package in process. Blake's access revoked as of this morning. The CEO didn't respond right away. He just watched the reflection of my log still faintly glowing on the conference screen. Make sure his severance doesn't exceed Clause 5.2, he finally said. I don't reward negligence. HR nodded and typed. The meeting ended without anyone saying the word failure, but it hung in the air like static. I left the boardroom with my notes clutched under one arm and a strange calm in my chest. People in the hallway glanced at me differently now. The kind of look you give someone who just walked away from a car crash untouched. No pity, no praise, just quiet acknowledgement that I'd done something irreversible. Back at my desk, my inbox had transformed overnight. Suddenly, I was visible. Legal sent a formal thank you for the comprehensive log documentation. Finance forwarded a message from Renwick's accounting division saying, "Thank you for your diligence." Even Carla herself wrote one clean line. "Thank you for the log. No emojis, no signatures, just precision." I flagged it and archived it. For the first time in months, the office felt still. Not peaceful. Recalibrated. The nervous energy that had fueled Connor's chaos had been replaced by something heavier, but steadier. Consequence. People stopped tossing around words like velocity and synergy. They started whispering process again, like it was sacred. Around 10 a.m., a new calendar invite popped up. Renwick Capital. Request to reconvene. The message was short and bloodless. We are willing to meet again under revised leadership and full compliance review. Please confirm new point of contact for contracts and escrow oversight. 2 words stood out. Revised leadership. No mention of Connor. No argument. Just surgical removal, the kind that leaves no scar. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen until the CEO's assistant appeared beside my cubicle. He'd like to see you, she said quietly. His office was half dark, blinds drawn, desk clear except for one manila folder. He didn't stand when I entered, just gestured to the chair across from him. I'll make this quick, he said. Renwick's giving us a second chance. You're the reason they're even considering it. I didn't answer. He slid the folder across the desk. Inside, A new badge, updated credentials, and a revised contract on company letterhead. Acting Vice President, Contracts and Compliance. Effective immediately. Retroactive to last Thursday. I blinked once. That was the day Carla sent her first confirmation email. "I know," he said. "That's when you saved us." I didn't smile, didn't thank him. I just nodded. "You're not surprised?" he said finally. No. He actually smiled a little. "Good. The board wants full recovery oversight. You'll report directly to me." "I already did." "Not officially," he said, a trace of dry humor breaking through the fatigue. I stood, closed the folder, and tucked it under my arm. "Will that be all?" He nodded once. "Good work, Rachel." I left his office at exactly 4:59 p.m., the same time Connor had stalled a week earlier, choking on his own bluff. The symmetry wasn't lost on me. The clock above reception ticked over to 5, clean and final. Back at my desk, the email threads were already shifting. CC lines updating, project leads renamed, ownership maps refreshing. Beside legal compliance, my name appeared in bold. Mendoza R. Primary contact. One last unread message sat at the top of my inbox. No subject line, no preamble, just a single sentence from Carla. "Understood. Thank you for the log." 7 words, no punctuation beyond that final period that landed like a gavel. I stared at it for a long moment, then archived it with the rest. No triumph, no revenge dance, just quiet confirmation that the system had teeth, and I'd used them properly. Finally, I scrolled to the very bottom of my Slack sidebar and found the last message Connor had ever sent me before the pitch. I'd ignored it until now. The preview line still glowed. "Heads up, Exhibit C thing might not matter, LOL." I hovered for a second, then hit delete. No ceremony, no anger, just the soft click of closure. The notary had walked out. I didn't chase her. I didn't shout, didn't warn anyone twice. I just logged the truth and let time do the rest. The office ran quieter after that week. Not silent, just stripped of its noise. No more hollow slogans echoing off glass walls. No more buzzwords taped over policy charts. The motivational posters about fail faster, fix later disappeared overnight, replaced by color-coded process maps I'd personally reissued. Even the interns stopped saying vibes in meetings. It was as if the company collectively remembered what grown-up work looked like. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The data trail spoke louder than any speech ever could. People glanced at me now. Not with fear, but with caution, like I was the weather system that decided whether their projects survived. And maybe I was. That's the strange thing about compliance. It's invisible right up until it isn't. A few days later, the CEO called another all-hands meeting. This time, there were no balloons, no hashtags, no blaring pop music on entry. Just an open floor, a whiteboard, and the man himself looking 10 years older. "We're rebuilding," he said simply. "From process up, no shortcuts, no heroes. And every department head will coordinate through Rachel's office before investor documentation leaves this building." I stood at the back, taking notes without raising my head. I didn't want applause. I wanted accuracy. When he finished, people clapped anyway. Not for him, for the fact that the chaos was over. After the meeting, the CEO stopped me in the hall. "They respect you now," he said. "They respect the rules," I corrected. He nodded. "Same thing, isn't it?" "Not yet," I said, and walked away. That afternoon, I reopened the escrow vault folder, the encrypted archive that had saved us, and created a new entry, 3/28, leadership transition complete. New compliance oversight initiated. Clause 11.4, amended to require notarization, pre-verification, before scheduling pitch events. I timestamped it, encrypted it twice, and smiled faintly. Systems don't fail. People do. My job was to make sure we never gave them the chance again. HR sent out a formal memo later that week. Connor Blake. Separation finalized. No reason listed, no announcement, no farewell cake. Just a single line under staff updates. Corporate erasure at its most efficient. Someone asked me quietly at lunch if I felt bad for him. I said, "You can't feel bad for someone who built their own cliff." They didn't ask again. Renwick Capital reconvened their due diligence meeting 2 weeks later. This time, it was just me, the CEO, legal, and Carla's delegation. She arrived early, as precise as before, in a charcoal suit and with the same unreadable expression. When we exchanged nods across the table, it wasn't warmth. It was acknowledgement between professionals who both understood what had almost happened. "Everything in order this time?" she asked. I slid the new binder forward. All originals verified. Exhibit C notarized 3 days prior by certified officer. Wet ink copy enclosed and retained on record. Carla flipped through it silently, page by page. When she reached Exhibit C, she stopped and pressed her thumb lightly against the embossed seal. Then she looked up and said, "Good." No smile, no compliment. Just good. The word hit like a green light after months of red. The meeting went fast. Signatures, countersigns, final approvals. No one mentioned Connor's name. No one had to. By the end of the hour, Renwick's legal counsel confirmed escrow compliance. The funds were released. The deal, resurrected. The CEO exhaled hard enough to fog his glasses. "You just saved this company twice," he murmured. "No," I said. "Barbara did." He blinked. "The notary? She left when she was disrespected. The clause existed because people like her take procedure seriously. I just didn't erase the evidence." He nodded slowly, and for the first time since this whole disaster began, I saw understanding in his eyes, the kind that replaces arrogance with something resembling humility. When the Renwick team left, Carla paused at the door. "You run a clean operation now," she said. "We try," I replied. "Don't stop," she said, and walked out. Later that night, the office lights flickered low, and I found myself alone in the boardroom where it had all fallen apart weeks earlier. The table still gleamed, but the room felt smaller, quieter, honest. I placed my hand over the sealed binder, feeling the faint texture of the embossed stamp beneath my fingers. The ink had dried, but the memory hadn't. I thought about Barbara, somewhere out there notarizing another deal for another company that probably didn't deserve her patience. She'd never know she'd been the hinge point between failure and redemption for Halberd Systems. But that's how these things go. The quiet ones leave the loudest marks. I logged one final entry for the night. 4:02. Escrow funds cleared. Compliance reinstated. Case closed. I encrypted it, backed it up, and shut down my laptop. When I stepped out of the building, the parking lot was empty, city lights buzzing faintly against a navy sky. I could see my reflection in the glass doors. The same suit, same expression, but something deeper behind the eyes. Not pride, just peace. Because sometimes justice doesn't roar. Sometimes it walks out quietly with a seal and a folder and lets the clock finish the job.